consumed in the country, out of which 80% is used for the road transport alone. It also accounts for around 11% of the total CO2 emissions from fuel consumption. India is in the midst of making commitments to adopt electric vehicles as one of the strategies for tackling the air pollution. As per projections, the EV fleet is only expected to increase. And there are several topics that we need to look at while making the transition from internal combustion engines to the electric technology. Hence, we gather here today for this session to discuss the potentials, actions of state governments to adopt electric mobility in Indian states and cities. The topics that we will be discussing today will be the status of EVs in India and the state level initiatives, barriers, challenges and potentials of strategic adoptions of EVs in Indian states and cities. The role of state governments to accelerate the adoption of EVs, such as innovative business models, policy directions, capacity building, etc. Now let me invite the speakers to the dais. Mr. Sudhanshu Singh from Feedback Infra. Mr. Swayam Dipta Chaudhary, CEO IPSDL Panaji Goa. Dr. Parveen Kumar, WRI India. Mr. Bibin Bahul, Naval Solar Boats, Kerala. Mr. Amit Bhatt, Director, WRI India. Welcome, gentlemen. Now, I would pass on the speaker to Mr. Amit Bhatt to chair the session.
Thanks a lot, Radhima. Good afternoon. Welcome to this session on role of electric mobility and what states can do to catalyze electric mobility. I know it's a day 2 of the conference. Post lunch, we had a great lunch in Citadel, as always. And it's difficult to kind of keep ourselves awake, especially after having such a lovely meal. So I'll request my speakers, it's a challenge for you to make sure that everyone is attentive and awake, and then the room is filled towards the end of the session. So please try to make it up for you. We have Mr. Sudhanshu, Mr. Paul, who will be joining us slightly late. He's caught in some urgent meeting. As you know, there was a case which was reported yesterday in Goa as well. And so a lot of government machinery is involved in dealing with the current epidemic outbreak which is happening in the world. So the question then becomes, why are we talking about electric mobility? And I think some of the stats we all know. Transport is one of the largest contributors of greenhouse gases. If you look at globally, about 15% emissions come from the transport sector. But what's even more important is that out of that, 2/3 of the emission comes from the road transport sector. And that is where I think we have to look at slightly this sector in detail. So on one side we have the emission problem. The other side we also have the air quality problem. And as you know, 18 out of 20 most polluted cities in India in the world are in India. And if you look at what contributes to this air pollution, transportation is always at the forefront of this contribution. Now, the recent study done by Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology in Delhi reported that as high as 50% of the emissions, particulate matter, come from transport sector. So, if you are able to clean up transport sector, on one side you are able to address this issue of emission, climate change, but you also address the issue of public health. Because air pollution kills over 12 lakh people in India annually. And therefore, the importance of transport, clean transport, cannot be overstated. What it also does is that if you have motorized transport which is clean, then it also helps people to walk and cycle. Because a lot of people who want to walk and cycle are afraid because they can't breathe the air which is prevalent outside. And that's where the opportunity for us is to look at zero emission vehicles. An electric vehicle is one such option and probably the most progressive option that we look at. Now, we have seen a lot of commitments, a lot of noise around electric mobility happening at central level, whether it is Niti Aayog, whether it is Ministry of Road Transport and Highway, or even the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. But the question is this: is there a role for state governments? And we believe there is, because transport is a concurrent subject, which means the rule making lies with the national government as well as the state government. So the national government can give direction, but it's the state government which will drive the agenda forward, because urban development is a state subject. And so if you look at transport, if you look at electric mobility, you have to look at charging infrastructure. And if you have to look at charging infrastructure, you have to look at land. And therefore, electric mobility scale-up cannot happen unless and until the state government are bought in and they are proactive partners in the process. So with this background, we'll start. We will have 3 presentations to stock, and then we'll have some Q&A, and hopefully we'll come to some conclusion towards the end. The first presentation will be from Parveen Kumar from WRI. He will set the context. He will give us what is there for electric mobility for us, what are the policy level issues surrounding it, and how we can frame the EV conversation. And then we will go more into detail. So, Parveen, about 10 minutes.
Thank you, Amit, for giving the background. Nothing more. So in this session, our focus will be around the e-mobility in India. And in my presentation, I will keep focus around the policy development, how the policy actions are taking place at the national and state level, and their impact on the ground, whether they are able to create a change on the ground or whether they are able to achieve the objective which is promised in the policy at the national and state level. So journey of e-mobility in India started in 2013 with the announcement of an EV mission. And the target was to have 6 to 7 million EVs by 2020. Now we are in 2020, whether we have a 6 to 7 million EV. The answer is no. Currently, the share of electric vehicles in total vehicle mix is 0.6 to 0.7%. So in the beginning, Mrs. Santosh and Amit, they mentioned the objective behind the e-mobility. Why we want a change in the automobile sector, why we are pushing so much for the adoption of electric mobility. So one is we want to reduce the emission to address the climate change issues. Other one is the issue of urban air quality. And in context of India, there is a third point, that is the energy security. Because we are importing 80 to 85% of oil requirement from the Middle East, and the supply vulnerability we have seen in the November, when there was a clash between the US and the Iran. That time the price of crude oil was going up, and if the oil price is going up, that will create a negative impact on our economy. The other issue is that when we are talking about pushing the e-mobility, we have to understand what are the challenges, how we can overcome the barrier, where the policy intervention is required at the national level, what states can do to achieve the target set at the national level. So you can go to the previous slide. So one of the major barrier in the e-mobility is the high upfront cost. Now how to overcome that? So in 2015, Government of India announced the incentive scheme, that is the FAME. And the first phase completed between 2015 and 19. Now the second phase is running. So in coming slide, we'll see that what is the impact of the FAME policy on the EV mission. Another issue was there about the anxiety related to the technology. So whether we have the right technology, EV technology, whether we have a capacity to manufacture, whether we have capacity to maintain that, whether we have a R&D capacity, we have a right set of skill to support the EV sector. To address all these things, in last 8 years, Government of India has taken several steps. So I have just listed. So in 2050, Government of India announced the DST technology platform. So the objective was of this platform is to create an ecosystem in India where we can do the directed research to support the EV sector in coming years, to promote the R&D at the different level, and then objective was to create a right set of skill to support the EV sector. The high upfront cost was one of the major issues, and Government of India tried to address this through the FAME scheme at the initial stage. But another step was taken by the ESL. They tried to use the demand aggregation model to support or accelerate the EV adoption in India. And this model they used to accelerate the adoption of LEDs in India, and they tried to use the similar approach to support or accelerate the EV adoption in India. Then there was a confusion around the charging infrastructure. How to develop, what kind of charging technology we need. Because our requirement is different than what we have in the other countries. In our case, we have 75 to 80% two-wheelers, followed by three-wheelers, and car share is very less, and buses are even at the bottom of the total vehicle mix. But in case of US and Europe and other countries, they have more number of cars. Their EV adoption is going through the adoption of e-cars. But in our case, market is growing in a different direction. So Government of India, the Ministry of Power has come up with some set of guidelines that what kind of charging technology, how we can develop to support the EV mission. Then in 2019, Government of India launched the phase manufacturing program, because when we are going towards adoption of EV at a large scale, we also need a manufacturing. Now due to this coronavirus impact, our manufacturing sector is struggling to get the component which is required for the EV. So you all know that battery is one of the important component of EV, and it accounts for around 50% of the total cost. And in our country, we have a capacity for only doing the battery pack manufacturing and pack level thing, but cell we are importing from the China. So similarly, on the finance side, government has introduced some support on the taxes. Then one of the very important steps the Government of India has taken this year, that is the battery waste management rules. Because we don't want to add only the EV. We want a resource efficient transition during this ICE to EV transition. So recycling ecosystem is very important to achieve this goal of less emission, low carbon economy in the best possible way. There is some other steps Government of India has taken in last 8 years to support the EV mission in India. So this was the steps taken at the national level. Next one. So this was the impact of FAME 1. So Government of India has allocated 895 crore. Out of that, 343 crore was allocated for demand incentive. And you can see that the one objective of having a footprint of electric vehicles all over the country, they are able to achieve. Presence of EV was there almost in any form, whether it's two-wheeler, e-rickshaw, buses and all. So you can just say the symbolic presence was there due to the FAME support. In the so this is the FAME 2. So now the FAME 2 is creating an impact, adding more in the footprint, and people are learning, because this was a new for everybody. So people are learning by doing. So in the first set of action, whatever we learned, now we have done the course correction and moving ahead. So what states can learn here? Because if you want a 6 to 7 million EV, state needs to formulate the policy as per their requirement and how they can add at the national level. So this is the target of the FAME incentive. We can just move ahead. This is the bus allocated under FAME 2, because in what is happening in the states when they are next slide. So this is the so in the first few slides I have shown how the FAME incentive is creating impact on the ground, but how market is growing. So growth in e-rickshaw is accelerating the e-market in India. But what is happening that this is e-rickshaw market is growing since 2010. So whether this is due to the EV mission or something else. Similarly, in case of e-car, B2B model is helping in accelerating the e-car adoption. And the other set of model which is evolving in the market is the aggregator model in a different vehicle segment. It's mainly operating into the e-bikes, two-wheelers, and in the e-car. So why I am showing this, that government policies are creating impact or showing the presence of EV at the national level. Market is also moving with this positive intent, and they are creating a learning with the barrier, converting the barrier into the opportunity. So next slide we see that what is happening at the state level. So currently 13 plus states are coming up with the EV policy. They are at the different stage of EV policy development. And the main focus, if you read all the EV policies, will be to give an incentive to push the demand. And the other target is to convert the state public transport into electric. Some of the states, they have kept focus around creating a manufacturing ecosystem. Some are trying to push for the technology development, R&D and skill development. So in each state, for example in Delhi, their focus is around pushing the EV adoption by supporting, giving the incentive in a different form, whether it's financial and non-financial incentives. So what should be the strategy? So government is giving a policy and the different direction. So policy is a broad framework to support the mission. But when it comes to implementation, you need a strategy. And that strategy can be divided into the pilot, scale-up and self-propelled phase. So pilot phase, government will come up with the enabling policy. And then at the scaling phase, industry will come up with the innovative business model. As I shown, like FAME 1 has created the footprint all over the country. But in the industry is pushing the EV in a different way, and the B2B model is going is driving the e-car adoption. So when you do the pilot, you learn and then you do the course correction to accelerate the thing, because you want a resource efficient transition to EV from ICE. So one task states can do, have a broad EV framework, EV policy framework, and then second important thing, you need to work out the implementation plan that should be customized as per your requirement. So one size will not fit for all. So if we just keep on copying and taking the lesson from the other state and having a same set of targets, same set of action plan, so we may lose the clear objective of having a resource efficient transition. That objective will be not able to achieve. So we have next slide. So this is the roadmap we prepared for the national level. What should be the strategy to drive the EV into the India? And in the next. And then we prepared the one roadmap. What should be the strategy at the city level if you want to implement your EV policy on the ground? So we worked with the Kerala government, helped them in their EV policy, and then we worked with them and presented the roadmap for the three cities, that is the Kochi, Kozhikode and Thiruvananthapuram, that what should be their strategy, how they can implement the state level policy at the city level. So one thing is that broad document, EV policy document, which will give the broad idea, intent at the state level, and then you need something called action plan, which will help you in implementing the policy. That's it.
Thanks a lot, Parveen. One is, which really came out, that if you want to scale up electric mobility, you have to look at three-pronged strategy in states. One is the pilot project. That's where a lot of support from government is needed. Second, you'll have to scale up pilot, because just one or two pilot will not make a difference. It has to be slightly substantive in nature, so it has to be scaled up. And then you come into the self-propelled phase where you don't do much. It's the market which drives the conversation forward. So that is very interesting, Parveen. Thanks a lot for this. Now, in your presentation, we felt EV is all about road transport. But is there a case for electric mobility in the inland water transport? Now, that's very exciting and interesting, so I'll request Bibin, if you could also present the case and share some examples on how can we use EVs in the inland water transport.
Thank you, Amit sir, and thank you, Parveen. It was a nice presentation, by the way. And since Amit sir and Parveen was focusing on the EV on roads, that's what we are familiar with. But we have come up with some different idea. And it's not the idea, now it's practically happening. So I just want the video to be played in the first place. It's a small video actually. Maybe I should go there. As you see, this is India's first solar ferry. Commercial solar ferry for 75 passenger capacity. As I speak here, its third anniversary. In Kerala, the Minister of Transport is actually inaugurating today. As I speak, the third anniversary functions. So that's the ferry. Actually, due to the time limit, I only put a 20-second video. I have you can check in the YouTube. There is a whole video. You can see the whole boat. So what I'm saying is, as Amit sir told, I mean even in Parveen sir's presentation, when we suggested this technology or this innovation thing to the government of Kerala, it almost took 2 years to convince them, because this is the future, or we can go for it. So it was started actually in 2013, the process. Actually, the NavAlt Solar Electric Board CEO, Mr. Singh, he was very kind of a visionary guy. So he just thought of converting the conventional diesel ferries to solar boat. And later he found out that that is kind of a difficult thing. It is not possible. So then he, did a research, and he found out a technology partner in France called Alternative Energies, and they found they have more than 20 years of electrical propulsion technology experience. So we together built a boat of this size actually. Coming back to my presentation, I'll tell you the whole scenario where we started, what makes the government of Kerala think to change. So this is the conventional diesel ferry which is operating in Kerala. There are 100 of them. So minimum, the operational cost of this ferry, it's a similar size ferry of our solar boat. So the minimum operational cost of this ferry is 7,000 rupees per day. That is 100 liters of diesel. And I'm not considering the wages of the conductors actually, and the lube oil. I'm talking about that. Just the diesel price. I'm talking about 100 liters of diesel, and there are 100 of them. So for the government of Kerala, it was not actually. I wish I had that remote kind of stuff so I can fast it. It's okay. Thanks. So actually the boat I showed you, it causes huge pollution. Then comes water pollution. That's a usual thing, diesel floats on the top of the water, which will, affect the vibration and sound which causes by the diesel boats. That's a vibration thing actually. And the smell of diesel fuel actually. So that's a picture really is a kind of, very much. And they weren't considered even about the capsizing because the boat was monohull. That was not their problem. These all not their problem. Their problem was the working cost, operational cost every day. Being a public transportation, we have to give in subsidized form, of course. And Kerala government have done is ridiculously subsidized because for one trip they are charging only 4 rupees now. It was 4 rupees before 5 years. Now also it's 4 years, 4 rupees. So they were telling that, okay, to overcome this, what is the exact solution? So the only solution, this is the cost I was talking about. For 4 rupees, actually the boat which is plied on the same place, which was earning a revenue of 6,000 rupees a day, that is 22 trips with 75 passengers every day. So every day the fuel cost itself 7,500. So that's a big loss, you can see. So how to overcome this? The only solution is electric propulsion, electric vehicle. So that time, EV on the surface of water was not very much, it was not very much initiated. So then we came with a plan. And for us, it was a pandemonium challenge because we are not building a small, 6-passenger boat. It's for just a fantasy thing. But we are building a commercial solar ferry, 75 passenger. So that was a pandemonium challenge. We have to choose the propulsion, we have to choose the battery, we have to choose the stability, all the things we have to consider because it's a public transportation. So that was a monumental challenge. On 2013, we have started convincing the Kerala government about the possibilities of an electric vehicle on the water. On 2015, the government have approved to put for a tender. So we got the tender actually. From 2015, the good thing in between, I'm not praising my government, I'm talking about just what they did is they have done a detailed research about the technology actually. So they don't want somebody to come in front of their office and tell that I can build a solar ferry. Does it work? It is safer or not? But they did research, did experience the technology, did study the technology. Then they put the tender. So we came up with the proposal of building a 75-passenger solar ferry. So the main challenge which I mentioned previously, because if I want to convert a conventional diesel ferry of 35 tons weight, that we call light ship weight, to convert that I need a ton of battery power, I need a bigger motor, I need bigger solar plant, all kind of stuff. So that's not possible. So what we did is we start all from the scratch and we have built a catamaran product with FRP, that's fiber reinforced plastic, that reduced the weight to 17 tons. So I should quote something else during this period because normally when we suggested that we are building a solar ferry, most of the people out there, even in Kerala, they told that, okay, if you're planning to convert a conventional ferry, it's not possible, it won't move at all. Because people were thinking that we are about to take a diesel ferry and convert that to a solar ferry, but that's not possible. Even today, it's not possible, we are telling that. So we have built, and we have reduced the drag of the boat, because it's 17 tons, drag to 15 kilometers. Because every time we have to reduce the size, even for the electric vehicles on the road, the main challenge they are facing is the weight. Because when it comes to weight and speed, they are all exponentially related. When it comes to speed, you take more power, then more battery, that kind of stuff. So this is our actually, we built a powertrain, we designed a powertrain, like Parveen sir told, that in India till now we are just making the power banks. We are not making the cells actually. And for us, we are not buying from China. We are buying from Japan and US actually, the cells. So this is our powertrain. We designed the powertrain, and this is actually a lithium LFP, it's called, a lithium power battery. So that's around 5,000 cycles. And it's 7 years actually, 7 years reliable. And it's marine grade. So what we did is we investigated that what all things are there in marine grade. I'm not talking about, see, the battery which is used in your normal EV car can't be used in the boat. Because escaping from a boat when a catastrophe comes takes too much time rather than in a road. So we need marine grade. So that we choose LiFePO4, that's a chemistry actually, called LFP. That battery we choose, and currently we are planning to use for lithium titanium oxide. That's a new technology happening, and you can get faster charging and all kind of stuff. So this is called actually lithium iron phosphate, and next challenge was we were facing is redundancy. What happens? It's a new boat, new technology, which is not familiar to the people out there. So what happens when the boat stuck in the middle of the river or the waterway? So we did the research on that, and we found it a system redundancy. Even if we put 2 battery banks in 2 hulls, 2 motors independently. So if one battery bank fails, the other battery bank will take the boat to the shore. Even one motor fails, the other motor will take the boat to the shore. So these kind of stuff we have done, and we were given more priority for the safety actually, because and the boat is under IRS, that is actually Indian Register of Shipping. Most of you may be knowing that. So that's the first boat in solar category actually, solar ferry, electric category. And like we have remote monitoring, all kind of stuff is here, that the new ergonomic stuff we can control from our R&D department. The boat can be controlled, it can be monitored, that kind of stuff. In 2017, the then Chief Minister of Kerala, Mr. Pinarayi Vijayan, launched the boat, 12th Jan. And that's a video, I don't think it will, okay, this is the full video. Thank God it played. You can see the boat entirely. I mean, sir, you can make it forward if I'm taking too much time. Okay, fine, then you can skip to the next. Okay, today, as I speak, we are celebrating the 3 years of Aditya. Its name is Aditya actually. So we have transported around 10,40,000 people. And the main important things, for the past 3 years, we have saved around 280 tons of carbon dioxide. That is 105,000 liters of diesel, not using it, a single drop. And we have earned 75 lakh rupees to the government of Kerala in return, 3 years. Okay, then already we have traveled 80,000 kilometers. So come to the next point. So, like I said in the previous slides, that operational cost happening to the diesel ferry is 7,500. Unfortunately, our boat is only 200 rupees per day. So that's a 179 rupees actually, that's a grid charging. Actually our boat consumes 63% of its energy from sun and rest is from the grid charging. It can be charged like your mobile phone. So when it's a sunny, I mean it's not sunny days and it's rainy days, we used to charge it from the shore. So the Kerala State Water Transport Department have arranged a charging station there. So we charged the battery from there. So from this actually we are saving 25 lakhs a year. So this is the life cycle cost of a conventional ferry. Suppose, see, every time people ask why you want to spend so much of money in an electric vehicle. When it comes to operational life cost, or if you consider that, that is very much significant. So the normal ferry will cost around 2 crores, our ferry will cost 3 crores. Just imagine if after 10 years, or the normal ferry life cycle is 20 years. Just consider after 20 years it will be 10 crore, ours it's only 4.5 crores. Next. So these are the things which happen every year, the global goals, on last August we have been awarded by the Solar Impulse Foundation as the efficient solution in the world, saving this much of money. It's a pure economical thing. So we are now labeled as Solar Impulse label thing is there, and like I said, this is International Solar Alliance visiting our boat. That is, ambassadors from 40 countries visited our boat, and they want to replicate this model into their countries. And it was organized by International Solar Alliance actually. That's the man behind it, Mr. Sandit Tandashiri. He was about to come here, unfortunately he's there, backstage there. So this is the motor. Yeah. So you can skip the next one. So as I told you, when it comes to more speed, then needs more power. So our boat is around 6 knots speed. So if you want to go for a 12 knots, currently for 6 knots we are consuming around 20 kilowatt. When it comes to say 12 knots, it's not 40 kilowatt, it's 200 kilowatt. So that's what I'm telling. So when it comes to speed, the power is related. Next slide, please. So then we introduced the solar hybrid. We are now moving into solar electric hybrid model. So we even suggested a hybrid technology to Goa government actually, so that tendering process happened. Now for past 9 months is dormant. I don't know what's happening there. So the government was needed for a 12 knots passenger ferry. So we told that we have the technology. So it's actually a mere request to WRI or actually when it puts to it's not about the support of the government. You need more. It's the government should do the research on what technology they are procuring. So if one government comes and tell that we need to replicate solar ferry, they need to understand what is the technology which is exactly needed to their requirement. So simply putting a technology, it's not going to work. Even when we take the case of Goa, Goa needs hybrid ferry because they need 12 knots speed because it's a kind of sea-going thing. So that kind of stuff we have to understand. That's a request actually. So this is the hybrid technology. This is a workboat which we developed for the French Navy. This is hybrid. It's 12 knots. Can you make it faster, please? Yeah, that's the Solar Impulse label. And currently we are looking forward to do the projects like solar electric ro-ro ferries, fishing boats, and hybrid boats. Next. And this is a smaller leisure boat we have designed, and already we are building 4 of them. Just finish. This is actually a compact energy box we have designed for our new small boats. So we have continuously doing R&D works too. Next. So that's the, I think let me conclude all these things. That's the end of the diesel ferries we are thinking of. And for your knowledge, Kerala government have ordered, put tender and ordered more 6 boats, same like Aditya. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Look at, you can actually convert boats into electric, and then for the last 3 years you've been running without any single drop of fuel and any single incident as well. So let me come back to my third speaker, Sudhanshu, and if you could also highlight something around the policy front, as Goa is looking to start a journey on electric mobility. What does it do on the policy front, and how do we start framing that policy?
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's the post-lunch session, so there's some dullness in the room. I'll try and keep it short and hopefully funny. So, let's start with what are the incentives of the state governments and how they interact with, let's say, the need to drive electric vehicles in India. I think there are 2 perverse objectives that are there. One is one of the easiest and the largest sources of taxes for the states is petroleum, right? Petrol and diesel. And so therefore there is that negative incentive for state governments to actually focus on, let's say, weaning the public away from petroleum products. So that is one issue that they face. The second is the historical legacy which exists within, let us say, the transportation regulatory authorities in these states, where they have till now focused on regulating road transport vehicles. For example, their main focus is on compliance or collecting small taxes on registration and regulating the transportation sector within these states. So there's that legacy that their focus is elsewhere, and now the need of the hour, if we want to have electric vehicles in the country, is different. So those are the 2 things which they face. Also, and that is why if you have ever looked at the electric vehicles policies which the states have, their focus is on the incentives which they are on their the low-hanging fruits, right? So their focus is on increasing manufacturing of electric vehicles, which increases the state GDP, and the other focus is on getting employment for their population, and that is where their EV policies have till now focused on. But I think there's a need to move away from that paradigm of focusing on the more traditional aspects and moving away and coming to terms with the new realities that are coming in along with electric vehicles, right? And instead of focusing on, let us say that, okay, we'll sell cars with subsidies and we'll put up charging infrastructure and we'll put in money in this. Instead of only that, I think they need to go out and off their skins and think in terms of how can this transformation from one type of energy to another can also be a fuel for how to more efficiently deliver these services to the citizens, right? So instead of, let us say, focusing on infrastructure alone, and I'm not saying infrastructure is not needed, it is very much needed. Instead of merely focusing on infrastructure, they should also add to the fact that till now there has been a lack of integrated transportation planning in the cities and in the states. And if they can channelize that integrated planning along with the transition to electric vehicles, I think then all of us will be much better off, right? So instead of the traditional thinking about, okay, I want electric vehicles, I want employment, I want my industries to come in, instead of that, if they think of the broader perspective, one is environment and pollution. There's a lot of pollution and everybody faces that, especially I come from Delhi and it's one of the most polluted cities in the world, and people have started noticing it so much and it has started impacting people so much that during winters and in other seasons there is a period where the economic activity has to be stopped so that people can take breath, people can live. Right? So if the situation has come to such a head, then the state governments elsewhere as well, and this is the problem for Goa as well, right? So people tend to think only cities like Delhi have a pollution problem, but this is a problem with Goa as well. If you look at the numbers, when there is the peak tourist season in Goa, then the city centers like Panjim and other places, they suffer quite a lot. And anyone who's been here in the tourist season will understand what I'm talking about. And it affects tourism as well. If you look at some of the island states which are there, their tourism has actually improved when they reduced their pollution levels. And same is the case with Goa. So that is one focus I think Goa should have, apart from the running thing which almost all states are doing so. And I don't want to say it, but it seems that people are copy pasting from each other for convenience sake. And I have often discussed this with some of the responsible people in the state as to how they want to achieve the objectives that they want to achieve in their policy. And frankly, many of them do not have a clue on that. They're still figuring it out. So one of the needs at state level is actually enhancing the capabilities of these organizations. If we expect the transport departments of the states to be able to take up this challenge and drive this transition in the states, I think we are mistaken. There is a strong need for capability building within those institutions which exist. And I think the organizer of this function and people like us, I think we are in the right place and the right position to be able to do such capability building in these institutions. So that is one. Another is if we look at so for states it doesn't matter, right? For states, or the dependence on oil doesn't matter because it is the problem of the central government. In fact, for them, it is a source of revenue. But if they look at the broader picture of how much oil dependence is there and how much the volatility in the oil prices is there and the challenges which is there, and also if they look at their own electricity sectors, the power sectors which exist in these states, we have a over generation capacity than the current demand. So we can consume more electricity, and with the renewable energy mission coming in and we are going in for towards being one of the largest renewable energy producer in India. I think there is a need to basically be able to address that supply, right? So we can make money, states can earn money from the additional supply that is coming from the renewable sources. Yes, as it is, there is about a $5 billion per year loss that India faces in the power sector alone. And I think central government is more or less fed up filling up this hole every 5 years or so through multiple schemes. So on one hand you have over expenditure on oil, on the other hand you have losses in the power sector and over capacity. And if we are able to look at this broader picture and manage these two issues together, then I think the only imperative left is our electric vehicles. Right? So just to summarize, what I want to say is that instead of thinking of it as an energy transition from one type of energy to another, if we look at the new paradigms and states do these few things. One is that they need to enable innovation. It is not about whether people will start buying electric two-wheelers or electric cars. There are new models that exist in terms of shared mobility, in terms of shared infrastructure, and that is why they need to be able to enable that innovation and adopt that innovation. And secondly, they need to also enable this adoption within the larger public. Right? There's an issue of lack of infrastructure or subsidies not being paid on time. So they need to address these challenges that the citizens have. And like Parveen said, lots of states have prepared policies, but they're still not sure as to how to actually go ahead and implement these policies. And I think the next step for them is to be able to create a roadmap and say these are the 5 things that we want to do in the state to enable this infrastructure and to increase the adoption of electric vehicles in the state, and probably run some pilots in either these innovative models of shared mobility or having electric vehicles within a city and using electric mobility for public transport. And once we have these success stories, I think it will be much easier for more states and more people to adopt electric mobility in that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Quick questions, if you can, identify yourself, and then a quick question, and then we'll ask. Maybe you can take some mic from here.
Thank you. My name is Bhakti Devi, and I am not an energy or expert, but I'm more into water, but I have broader interest in sustainability. So my question is, yesterday we had a presentation from a gentleman. He was talking about the biogas, bottling it and using it for vehicles. And it would seem like if you looked at the waste issue we have at a large scale, how do you, as experts, are you looking at that as also an alternative rather than depend on electricity grid, which is still fossil fuel dependent? Just I wanted your views on that.
Sure. So the first question on biogas. We'll take 2 or 3 questions, then we'll ask people to one. Yes, sir. You wanted to have a question.
I am from Eelectric. My question is, when we talk of electrical vehicles or any electrical boards or something like that, ultimately whatever energy we use the batteries again. Is there any process of disposing of those batteries? Because those batteries will create a menace. Once you start using lot many electrical vehicles or buses, then you will have problem to dispose them off, as we have today a great problem of e-waste with mobiles. The other question, small question I have about, Mr. Singh was saying there is the abundant electricity and we need not worry. But practically we see a lot of power cuts everywhere. And I don't know, but there was a photograph in one of the English dailies in Mumbai. The Pune depot was being shown where the bus was recharged by a generator. So having that sort of infrastructure in our country, do really we think that the immediately use of the electrical vehicles and electrical buses and everything throughout India will really work, or it is just a project or a concept we are all running about?
Sure. And the last question, Ridhima, you.
What I want to ask is, there has been years of research that has been done on the cars, electric cars, and still we see in US that it's still not able to meet the requirements of the electronic vehicles in US itself. In a country like India, where the number of vehicles on road are exponentially increasing, unlike the developed world, how are we able to, or are there any such initiatives from the government where new innovations or things like that are being acknowledged or are being brought forward?
So, if you want to answer the demand supply question.
On the supply and demand, actually.
Hello. Yeah. So on the supply and demand, actually we have an oversupply. That is a fact. The other challenges in terms of power cuts or not having a charging infrastructure for electric vehicles, yes, and that is why there's a lot of spending going on from both the state governments as well as the national government in creating a charging infrastructure. The example that you took, and I tried to answer it in my speech also, was that they need integrated planning. I know of several states who are either buying electric buses or have bought electric buses, but they forgot to buy electric chargers, thinking they will somehow supply it some way or the other. And it is also a question of capacity building. See, diesel buses never needed any charging infrastructure. So when you tender out for a diesel bus, 50 diesel buses, this length, this engine capacity, this warranty done. Now the same transport department is being asked to tender out for electric buses. Frankly, those fellows forgot. And this has happened in Assam, this has happened in Jammu Kashmir, and there are other states which I would rather not name.
Supply should take a initiative in capacity building. It is putting charging stations doesn't need a rocket science.
It doesn't, but those fellows are not used to it. Let's just say that. They did tender it out, but that was an afterthought because money was coming in from somewhere and they were supposed to take it.
So
or budget
let's be
for
quick,
it.
it's a brief. Parveen, you can answer this question on battery.
So he's a very valid question and very important question, and we have seen that we did mistake when we started the computer thing, and then we didn't plan at the beginning, and we are facing the problem now. So in case of electric vehicle, now there is a recently Government of India has announced the Battery Management Act, where they have to electric vehicle manufacturer and battery manufacturer have to track the battery from the starting to end. So what will happen in case of electric vehicle, the batteries will go for the second life application. So now there will be rule where the manufacturer or supplier has to track that where battery is going, and then how that will be recycled. And this is going to be integrated. If you are not going to integrate, this will be a big problem, because resource will be the other problem, because extracting lithium and cobalt is not environmental friendly. So recycling ecosystem we have to strengthen if we want to truly achieve the objective why we are going from ICE to EV. At same time, we just I will add here that in case of when you are doing the recycling, you have to ensure that what you will do with the raw material which you will extract. So currently some of the companies, they are doing the recycling of the lithium battery and they are selling the raw material to the big player like Umicore. So we have to complete the battery supply chain. We have the cell manufacturing, battery pack manufacturing, but we have to integrate the cell manufacturing in the supply chain so that material recycled can be integrated in the manufacturing. And the second thing, if we want an efficient recycling ecosystem, we have to start from the design. The vehicle manufacturer and battery manufacturer to design in such a way that there will be smooth transition for the reuse and the recycling.
Bibin, your question on
Thank you, ma'am. You asked a right question. So I'm not very much familiar that whether we can use the biogas, because I don't think that technology is not up to the standard. Once we are actually reliable on the technology which can be used, which is kind of sustainable. So actually we have tried along with our technology partner in France for converting into hydrogen fuel cell. In fact we have put a boat with hydrogen fuel cell, but there is another problem for that. Even if we want to adopt that in here, we want, like the charging station problem, we want a facility to store the hydrogen fuel, and we want that in our boat. So that kind of, I wish this can be done, since the waste piling up here can be transferred to biogas. That's very good thing actually. So I wish it can happen. Okay, thank you.
I think as director, storing hydrogen is a problem. No, I'm saying one so that is the problem. If you're not able to store, then it can have a potential catastrophic impact as well.
Yes, it can be used. LPG also they used to use it illegally.
Just to add, I think there's a whole supply chain problem. The supply bases are small, so it can cater to smaller heating and lighting solutions within rural areas, but supplying that to an industrial application like vehicles.
So let's discuss this offline. We are already an opportunity. Electric mobility is an opportunity which we have to use. Tomorrow, if we, let's say, convert all our vehicle to electric, what will happen? There will be zero tailpipe emission, but there will be congestion, except that this will be a clean congestion. We don't want clean congestion, we want clean mobility, and that's where we have to use this opportunity to frame the conversation right. Let's see, state governments come up, do something positive to help bring about change. So with this, we'll end this session, but again, thanks a lot for your participation.
At last but not the least, we have Hugo Ribau Dumas. He will be talking about the Sustainable Tourism Initiative by Goa government. Please be on the stage.
Hello everybody, I promise I'm going to be very quick. So my name is Hugo, I'm from France and I work in Goa as a consultant with the government of Goa, Goa Tourism. And one of our jobs as consultant is to suggest ideas to the government on what kind of strategy Goa should have for tourism. So, as a quick introduction, we all know that Goa is a tourism hub. In fact, Goa, the word itself, is a brand. When people hear Goa, they think about tourism, they think about the coastline, holidays. And if we look at the tourism assets of Goa as far as tourism is concerned, nature is of course very important. Goa has only 100 kilometers of coastline, but it has a very rich wildlife and very rich ecosystem. Now the issue is that due to the effect of tourism, and more specifically mass tourism, there has been various negative externalities on Goa. One of them being the reduction of water quality. If you had a swim in the beach right there, there are high chances that there was traces of, let's say, pollution. Damage of coral reef, pollution, waste management, wildlife, and beach erosion. So we can see that the tourism has a direct impact on Goa's ecosystem. And this is affecting also the reputation of Goa. These are 3 articles from Russia, UK, and France, and all of them are saying that because of pollution, foreign tourists are less and less interested to come to Goa. So basically there is a vicious circle. Because there is overcrowding and pollution, wealthier tourists who have greater power purchase prefer to go to other destinations, including, for example, in Thailand and Malaysia, in other countries in the region. Because because affluent tourists are coming less frequently, less affluent tourists are coming, and it means that there is less incentive for the private sector, for the tourism industry, to invest in sustainable solutions. And this leads to the degradation of the quality of services in Goa, again, a vicious circle. Yes, I mean, just to say that we have made a small study, and foreign tourists are telling us more and more that one of the reasons they don't want to come back to Goa is because they find it's too polluted and sustainability is not enough taken into account. So what we realize is that Goa is now at a crossroad. Either Goa is taking the same direction that they are taking now, which means investing on mass tourism, which will have a big impact on its ecosystem, which questions the possibility of having a pleasant Goa for the future, or Goa takes a different direction and invests in sustainable tourism. And that's the road we are, of course, suggesting to the government of Goa. So, you can go to the next. I'm not going to go into theory. Just to conclude, I'm going to present you a few solutions which we would like to implement in Goa in the coming months. So first of all, a big problem in Goa, not just in Goa, in fact, everywhere in India, especially when we talk about sustainability, is dialogue. In Goa, the Goa government, Goa tourism, has lost a lot of credibility, and basically civil society and Goans themselves are often not taken seriously enough the measures taken by the government. I'm giving one example, Blue Flag certification. Blue Flag certification is a label which is provided by an NGO based in Sweden, if I'm not wrong, which basically says that this one beach is respecting some basic sustainability criteria. In Goa, when the government announced that they wanted to implement this certification in the state, there were massive demonstrations because people thought that the government wanted to privatize the beaches, which is not the case. So we see that there is a problem of dialogue. When the government proposes solutions, civil society is not always ready to listen to them, and vice versa. So one possibility to restore dialogue would be that the Goa government could participate in building the skills of the tourism industry. For example, if you take someone, a Goan who has a piece of land and who doesn't want to be into agriculture anymore, wants to invest in nautical tourism, the easiest thing for him would be to invest in jet ski, put them in the water, and basically bring tourists like that. Now you will say that this jet ski business is not sustainable. True enough. But does this person know any alternative? So the idea here would be that the government would help this kind of investor and suggest them sustainable business practices. yes. So that's the idea of sustainability incubator. We would like to create within the Goa government, maybe once every 3 months, an incubator. So it will be a room which will be open to anyone interested to invest in Goa. You will have experts from different fields, sanitation, water, electricity, and investor would get concrete hand-holding support to invest in a sustainable manner in tourism in Goa. You can skip. Let's go quickly. Now, I've been talking about the negative aspect of tourism in Goa. There are also lots of very good things happening in Goa. Here we are giving example of few hotels, or here you have the dolphin tours, who are really taking extra steps to introduce eco-responsible practices in the state. So these are private initiatives, and we believe that the role of the government would be to put a spotlight on these people who are investing to improve the quality of tourism in the state. How can we help these people? By creating a label, an eco-label, which will be issued to businesses to certify that they are taking measures which are positive for the state and which are sustainable. Similarly, we believe that Goa government should put wildlife at the core of its marketing strategy. Today, when people come to Goa, they have in mind alcohol, they have in mind the beach, they have in mind partying, but they don't really think about also the wildlife that is there. So typically the turtles and the dolphins, and even the crocodiles. So in terms of visual identity, in terms of marketing messages, we believe that tourists should be more aware of the wildlife in Goa. Now we've realized, because we work with the Goa government, that you have many private companies who are interested to invest in tourism as part of the CSR activities. And on the other side, the Goa government often lacks funds to implement projects. So we believe that there is here a gap which should be filled, where we could create a hub where companies would apply for CSR activities, and the Goa government would suggest tourism-oriented activities which could be funded under this scheme. So I'm coming almost to the conclusion. We believe that, as I said before, ecotourism should be really, really at the core of the Goa brand. Beach, party, and alcohol is not enough to build a sustainable tourism brand. Goa needs to have a much more forward vision. And finally, that's my last point. We talked about the private sector, we talked about the government, but tourists also have a responsibility in making tourism sustainable in the state. So we would like to implement a more proactive messaging system and put boards on the beach, for example. You can go to the next slide. Where basically the idea would be to give messages on cleanliness, for example, which would be more, at the same time, informative, and also to keep the Goan vibe, to make them a little bit fun. So for example, Kachra felne wala, tera muh kala. So just the idea would be to, exactly, that's exactly the objective, to make people smile. And if you have this kind of message, and if people smile, they will tend to remember the message more than please don't waste our beach. So I wanted to conclude on this kind of messages, which we believe that it's possible to keep this Goan vibe, which is all about fun and partying and beach, and still have a sustainable vision. Thank you.
So much, Hugo. Now I would like to invite Emeritus Mayor Peter Woods O on the stage. To present the mementos to our esteemed panelists. Sir. Mr. Amit Bhatt, WRI India. Mr. Hugo Rivaldo Dumas. Now I would like to invite Thank you so much. Doing some interesting things. Good luck with it. Thank you. Thank you.